back to ABC News Live. We continue to follow the breaking news. Conservative political activist Charlie Kirk has been shot.
Breaking news, political activist and conservative media personality Charlie Kirk shot and killed while...
Imagine this. A packed university auditorium, thousands gathered, cameras rolling, anticipation in the air, and then chaos. In just seconds, America lost one of its most controversial voices. Charlie Kirk, the man who shaped an entire generation of young conservatives, is gone. This wasn't just a breaking news alert. It was a shockwave that ripped across the country. Supporters cried in disbelief, critics stunned into silence. And now a nation asks, how did it happen? Why here? Why now? And what does this mean for America's future? Stay with me, because in this video we'll break down everything we know, the dramatic events of that night, the reactions pouring in, and the lasting impact of Charlie Kirk's life and death. Who was Charlie Kirk? Before we dive into the incident, let's step back for a moment. Who exactly was Charlie Kirk? At just 18 years old, he founded Turning Point USA, a student movement that quickly became one of the most powerful conservative platforms in America. He was bold, unapologetic, and always at the center of political storms. For millions of young conservatives, Kirk was a mentor, a role model, even a hero. His rallies drew massive crowds, his speeches lit up social media, and his ideas fueled an entire movement. But admiration was only half the story. For many of his opponents, Charlie Kirk represented everything they despised about America's political divide. His outspoken nature and controversial remarks earned him fierce criticism, and just as much hate as love. He wasn't just a political figure, he was a lightning rod, sparking debates wherever he went. And that's what makes the story of his death even more shocking. September evening, Utah Valley University. The campus was buzzing with energy. Students, parents, and supporters had gathered for Charlie Kirk's American Comeback Tour, a highly anticipated event that promised fiery speeches and powerful moments. The auditorium was full, the lights were bright, and the cameras were ready. Kirk had just taken the stage, commanding the crowd with his usual confidence. For many, this was their chance to see the man whose voice had defined a movement. The room was alive with cheers and applause, and then it happened. A sudden crack. The unmistakable sound of a gunshot tore through the hall. In an instant, the energy flipped to sheer panic. Screams echoed, chairs toppled, people rushed for cover. What had been a rallying cry for conservatives turned into a nightmare. Eyewitnesses say Kirk staggered, collapsing as chaos broke out around him. Some froze in disbelief, others ran toward the exits. Security scrambled. The sound of fear, might, and confusion filled the air. First responders rushed in within moments. Medics fought desperately to stabilize him. Police secured the area, ushering panicked students out while trying to locate the shooter. Reports say the scene was pure chaos. Cell phones recording, people crying, sirens wailing. Charlie Kirk was rushed to the hospital, but the unthinkable had already happened. Despite every effort, the man who had electrified a movement just hours before would not survive the night. The rally was over, and with it, an entire era of political debate had just changed forever. Within minutes of the shooting, Utah Valley University went into lockdown. Police officers swarmed the campus, helicopters circled overhead, and the FBI was called in to assist. What had begun as a political rally had now turned into a massive crime scene. Officials confirmed that Charlie Kirk had been shot on stage in front of a live audience. Eyewitness videos quickly spread online, showing the terrifying moments of panic as the crowd scattered. The footage left no doubt this was a deliberate act of violence. The suspect, whose identity authorities have been careful to withhold until formal charges are filed, became the subject of a statewide manhunt. Roadblocks were set up, patrol cars lined the highways, and investigators combed through every detail. Security camera footage, eyewitness testimony, even social media posts leading up to the event. The FBI released a statement calling the attack a politically significant act of violence. Local police described it as a targeted shooting that shook the entire community. Meanwhile, the university canceled all events for the week, turning the campus into a place of mourning and shock. Students who had come to hear a speech suddenly found themselves at the center of one of the most shocking tragedies in recent American politics. And while investigators worked through the night, one fact was clear. This wasn't just about Charlie Kirk. This was about something bigger: the fragile state of political discourse in America, and how far people are willing to go when words turn into violence. The moment shots rang out, the event was thrown into chaos. But within minutes, law enforcement had transformed the university into a lockdown zone. Students were ushered out of lecture halls, doors were bolted shut, and a flood of flashing red and blue lights turned the campus into something that looked more like a war zone than a school. Authorities confirmed quickly what so many feared. Charlie Kirk had been struck by gunfire during his speech. The announcement spread like wildfire online, with livestream clips and shaky cell phone videos capturing the panic in real time. Police wasted no time. Tactical teams swept the grounds, searching room by room. The FBI was called in almost immediately, treating the attack not just as a shooting, but as a politically motivated act of violence. Investigators pieced together the timeline, gathering surveillance footage, interviewing traumatized witnesses, and scouring social media for any sign of premeditation. At the same time, hospitals reported their emergency wards on full alert. Officers stood guard as doctors fought desperately to save Kirk's life. But despite everything, by the end of the night, the news broke. Charlie Kirk was dead. The suspect's identity was not immediately released, but officials confirmed a manhunt was underway. Roadblocks appeared across Utah, helicopters hovered overhead, and the search spread beyond the state's borders. The message from law enforcement was clear: we will find who did this. Yet even as the investigation began, one chilling truth had already set in. This was not just an attack on one man. This was an assault on the fragile fabric of American politics itself. News of Charlie Kirk's death spread across America in minutes, and the reactions were immediate, emotional, and deeply divided. For his supporters, the shock was unbearable. Vigils sprang up outside campuses, candles lined the sidewalks, and young conservatives gathered to honor the man they saw as a fearless voice who had given them a platform. On social media, tributes poured in with hashtags like #JusticeForCharlie and #StandWithTPUSA trending within hours. Political leaders also weighed in. Utah's governor called it a cowardly act of violence against free speech itself. Members of Congress, especially from the conservative side, described Kirk as a patriot who fought for his beliefs until the very end. But not everyone responded with sympathy. Some of his fiercest critics, the ones who had clashed with him for years, reacted with silence, or in some cases, controversial statements that fueled even more debate. To his detractors, Charlie Kirk was a polarizing figure, and his sudden death only highlighted how deep America's political fault lines run. Media outlets across the spectrum devoted wall-to-wall coverage, each framing the story through their own lens. For some, this was a tragedy of free expression under attack. For others, it was a grim reminder of just how toxic America's political climate has become. And while the nation argued, one reality became clear. Whether you admired him or opposed him, Charlie Kirk's death was impossible to ignore. It had ripped open a conversation that America is still struggling to have, about politics, polarization, and the price of speaking out. To understand the storm around Charlie Kirk's death, you have to first understand the storm that surrounded his life. Kirk wasn't just a speaker, he was a force. As the founder of Turning Point USA, he built an empire on college campuses, turning student activism into a nationwide conservative movement. His rallies drew thousands of young people. His social media reach stretched into the millions, and his message was simple: challenge the status quo, push back against liberal dominance in education, and reclaim what he called America's true values. But that same message made him a lightning rod for controversy. To his supporters, he was brave, unafraid to speak out in a culture they believed was silencing conservative voices. To his critics, he was dangerous, accused of spreading divisive rhetoric, misinformation, and fueling the flames of America's political divide. Television debates, viral clips, heated confrontations on campuses. Kirk thrived on them all. Every speech drew applause from one side and outrage from the other. Every appearance seemed to spark headlines, arguments, and endless debates. This love-hate dynamic was what made him impossible to ignore. He wasn't just another commentator. He was a figure who embodied America's polarization itself. Admired and attacked in equal measure, Charlie Kirk lived in the eye of a storm, and his sudden death has only made that storm more intense. Charlie Kirk's death wasn't just the loss of one man. It sent shockwaves through an entire political movement. For conservatives, especially young activists who saw Kirk as a mentor, this is a moment of deep uncertainty. Turning Point USA, the organization he built from the ground up, now faces its biggest test yet. Can it survive without the charismatic leader who gave it energy, direction, and national attention? Or will the movement splinter, struggling to find its next voice? Beyond his organization, the impact stretches into the heart of American politics. Kirk was more than a campus speaker. He was a pipeline, connecting college students to the broader conservative cause, feeding new voices into the Republican Party, and shaping future leaders. His sudden absence leaves a gap that will not be easy to fill. And then there's the bigger picture. Kirk's killing has reignited urgent conversations about political violence in America. Is free speech truly safe in such a polarized climate? What happens when political battles cross the line from debate to bloodshed? For many, his death symbolizes just how fragile the nation's discourse has become. Love him or hate him, Charlie Kirk's story now stands as both a warning and a turning point. His life built a movement. His death may redefine it. Charlie Kirk lived his life in the spotlight, celebrated by some, condemned by others. He thrived on debate, controversy, and the clash of ideas. And now, in one violent moment, that voice has been silenced forever. But what remains is the question of legacy. Will history remember him as a fearless defender of free speech, a leader who gave young conservatives a voice? Or will he be seen as a figure who deepened America's divisions, a symbol of the polarization tearing the country apart? One thing is certain, Charlie Kirk's story doesn't end here. His death has already sparked new debates, new emotions, and new questions about the future of politics in America. And now I want to hear from you. What do you think about this shocking event? How will Charlie Kirk's life and death be remembered in the years to come? Share your thoughts, but please do so with respect. If you found this breakdown informative, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more deep dives into major events, and hit the bell so you never miss an update. This has been one of the most shocking stories in recent memory. And as the nation reflects, one thing is clear. The conversation about Charlie Kirk and what he stood for is far from over. History often remembers leaders for the battles they fought in life. But sometimes it's their death that defines the conversation for generations to come. Charlie Kirk's voice may be gone, but the echoes of his words and the divisions he stirred will linger in classrooms, on campuses, and in the halls of politics for years. This isn't just the end of a man's story. It's the beginning of a larger one, about America, its future, and the cost of speaking out in an age where words can be as dangerous as weapons. The question now is simple, Echo. What comes next?